talk about the Waveshaper oscillator on the Arturia MiniFreak. The Waveshaper oscillator adds two different interesting types of synthesis outcomes. Both a Waveshaper, which is basically something that adjusts the attack and decay slopes of the basic waveform, basically changing the length of them. And if you change the length of a side of a waveform, you're going to get a different waveform. So you're actually just changing the waveform by changing the amount of time it takes for the waveform to go up and back down. And that's a very basic way of describing what the Waveshaper does. And the Wave Folder is this really cool technology that I think Don Buchla was the first to implement in 1973's Buchla easel or 208 module. What it basically does is it folds over the top of a waveform. So if you have a sine wave, the most basic waveform that exists, and then you fold its top down, you have created a new waveform because it has more shape, and more shape means more harmonics. And so you have this ability to take, basically mutilate the sine wave, take its top and bottom, fold them in, making a new waveform shape, and it has a very recognizable sound and useful sound. So that's basically what we're looking at with the Waveshaper waveform. So let's dig into it. Your first knob, Wave, is actually Wave, which is handy. It allows you to set the waveform that is going to be either folded or shaped or both. So let's go through the waveforms it sounds like we have here. There's a square turning into a sine. So we have a sine eventually. But we have something between a square and a sine right here. So there's already wave shaping going on. I don't know what wave that is. Something digital, it sounds like. Doesn't sound like a saw. So yeah, there's already some wave shaping going on in our sort of preset waveforms found on the wave knob. And I always want to point this out when I see it. Anytime you have a sine wave as an oscillator type that is continuously variable to another wave shape, like for example the square, keep in mind that what we've been doing with analog synths the whole time is taking a complex waveform and basically taking the harmonics out of it until it's a sine wave. That's what a low pass basically is doing. So you have the ability to create filter effects just by modulating this one knob alone. So you are already on your way to doing really incredible and cool filter effects without even wasting a filter. Now your filter, you can still do whatever you want to do with it to something else at a different point or whatever. If you want to use, like, for example, the resonance and jack it up into self-oscillation and be using your analog filter as another oscillator for some reason, you could be using this as kind of a filter effect right here in a single knob modulated in your wave shaping oscillator. Anyway, so we're choosing a waveform to start with. We start with the sine. And then next we have our wave folder, which is just taking that sine wave and taking the top of the hump of the wave and inverting it. So you make this sound. It's a sound with a lot of character. And of course, you have it continuously variable as you add the effect. You have a variety of waveforms that exist in the throw of this knob. And don't forget that we're all basing this folding on the wave that we chose on our wave knob. So we can actually change the wave knob and get different outcomes from the timbre knob. I think those are really cool. And you could be modulating both of them simultaneously. So that is a really cool and rich sound. And so just imagine, like, if you brought this up on your second oscillator, you had all of those things modulated by various modulation sources, getting that sound, and then you did it again with different modulation sources on your second oscillator, you would have just, wow, a really fantastic sound. So it makes me wish that I had actually made that sound up before I started demonstrating this, because I could just show that to you. But also it might encourage you to investigate yourself. And then finally, let's get back to the sign. We have the Waveshaper. Let's hear what it does. We've started off with a sound, with a waveform that doesn't have any harmonics, and shaping it, changing the up and down slope of this has given it some harmonics. A really nice full rounded sound. Not as pure as a sine, but also not as raucous as a saw. And don't forget, you could also add in the folding. Right there, now the Waveshaper is making a considerable difference because the wave going into it has been folded beforehand. There's even some formants going on in there. With a little experimentation, you could get that to be saying words. And of course, you could, we're still working with a sine wave coming out of the wave section. So what happens if we mess around with those waves? Yeah, see, I have to admit, like, it's been a while since I messed around with the Waveshaper because I'm always diving for other things. But my gosh, you could then bring in the filter to sort of smooth out some of those variations. You could make some very interesting and variable and gloppy sounds with that. That's really a cool thing. That is a really cool sound. So yeah, again, like with every oscillator on the MiniFreak, modulation is your friend. You want to get in there, and I mean, some of these knobs obviously exist already in the matrix over here, but you can add the ones that don't in the assign buttons, and you could really go to town having modulations occurring on these various aspects of these wave shaping properties found on the Waveshaper and get some really interesting and fun sounds. And also, yeah, it's really fun to do filter sweepy type stuff like I was just doing, but more calculated things like with your cycling envelope, just having more harmonics at the beginning and having it move down to less harmonics or whatever. You could emulate more acoustic sounds. You can create more interesting sounds. It doesn't have to be, candy all the time. It's really a great synthesis tool is what I'm trying to say. You can probably do like a Leslie emulation with that as well. That's pretty cool. Again, those vocal sounds, really a neat oscillator. I have underused this oscillator. Anyway, this is the Waveshaper oscillator found on the Arturia MiniFreak.